Hey guys, this is Obelisk. I'm back with another installment to my DAoC class overview video series. Today I'm going to be talking about Druids. I'm mainly going to talk about one spec in particular, but I'll go over all the abilities they get in a few lines. But I do think this is probably one of the better specs. There are a couple variations you can go. I'm probably not going to super get into nature, the more damage CC oriented line. Just because I don't know how popular that is. I don't know if there's a big demand for that to get delved into, but I will do, I guess, a quick overview of the abilities in that line. But I'm probably not really going to go into to nature specs, like you should go X amount of nature, X amount of regrowth, or whatever. So what I'm going to do is just go over the main sort of nurture regrowth with a little bit of nature spec, talk about that, talk about some RAs, just all the abilities, maybe some strategy and some things that you probably want in your template. Let's see, let's go ahead and get in the game here. Let's see, I'm on my Druid, I have a Bard in here to test some things on as well. But let's start by looking at my spec, the spec that I decided to go. And I think this is probably one of the better Druid specs. There are other specs you could go, obviously, but I do like this one. Now I'll explain why as we go through. You can kind of see what I get and maybe see what I don't get. But let's start with the nurture line, the buff line, and I mean, essentially what you get in here, if you're familiar with any sort of support class or buffs in general, you probably are, unless you're relatively newer or haven't played in a while, but you get your base buffs, like your base strength buff right here, Mighty Redwood, base dex buff, a base AF buff, a base con buff. Then you start to get into your spec buffs. Let's just look at the stat buffs. You get the dex quick buff. Now, keep in mind that yellow dex quick does cap if you have cap buff bonus, so you'll cap your buffs with this, and you can even use yellow base dex. So let's give ourselves yellow dex quick and yellow base dex. You can see we're at the buff cap of plus 155 from buffs and debuffs right there. Some other buffs that we get are strength con. We get the yellow strength con. This isn't going to give us cap strength con. The yellow base con will, however, this yellow string con, we're going to be 5 off, I believe. So we'll start with base con, and we get our I have some con loss, but you get 62 from buffs. That's a cap for bases. I'm using red base con. I'm pretty sure I could use yellow. Anyway, we get the yellow string con, which gives us 147, so we're actually 8 off, not 5, like I mentioned earlier. Let me make sure I'm 25 buff bonus, so I should be buffing for the max amount. Just a quick test. I'm curious just to make sure base con caps. I thought it did, but for some reason I had red string con or red base con on my bar. Let's see. So we were at 147 before, and we're still at 147. So yeah, yellow base con does cap, so I'm going to put that actually on my bar for good. Anyway, let's look at some more buffs that we get. We're going to get an acuity buff. Now we're getting the yellow acuity buff, and this is not going to cap. Actually, the red acuity buff that you'll get if you go 42 nurture. Let's see, 42 nurture, you get a red acuity buff. This does not cap either, actually. So your acuity is not going to cap. So even if you get the red one, you're under cap, and you can get more acuity if your group wants to by getting things called Diffusion of Comprehensions. It's just an overall group acuity buff, can give you some more acuity. But just keep in mind, you're definitely not capping with yellow acuity with my spec, and you're not even capping with the red acuity. However, the reason I don't mind going for lesser value buffs is because in today's game, a lot of people are running supremacy pots, which give you a lot higher. Also, the supremacy pot acuity gives you more acuity than this red acuity that Druids get now. So you're actually getting a lot more acuity by using a sub pot anyway on the caster. But in a fight, if they get sheared of acuity or if they die, most people will probably be using supremacy pots. Now, if you're in a group that doesn't have supremacy pots, like if you're running a set group and you've decided that no one wants to run sup pots and your casters want a bit more acuity, then you can lower your nature and get 42 nurture, but I don't think that's a good idea. I think you should just tell them, get some sup pots, man, or get an acuity charge, because I got other stuff I gotta get. The stuff you get at low level nature, mainly a D root, I'll get into that later, is really important. So losing the red acuity is not a big deal. You also get a yellow haste, 17% haste. You're never getting the red haste in an actual, maybe a bot spec, but in an actual RVR spec, you're not getting the red haste because that's at 50 nurture. So you get the 17% haste, good enough for in-combat buffs if they don't want to use a sup pot. And as far as buffs go, that's pretty much it. You get some AoE buffs, like you get the, let's see, you should get a yellow AoE strength con buff just for people that, it could be used for pets if you're ab conk and you need to buff a pet. Throw this on them, you'll give them strength con. Same with the dex quick AoE buff. They're super low value buffs, so you don't want to be throwing these on people really. Acuity buff, but if you need to, they're there. If you're in like a keep siege situation, you want to help out your team. Maybe people in your realm squad don't have buffs. Throw these up, not a big deal. Other things we get, they are very important. Warmth of the Bear. This is your resist buff. 24% resist to heat, cold, and matter. This is super important. You're always going to want to keep this up. Once you cast it, it stays up forever pretty much until you die or until you cancel it. It's like a chant almost. However, if you do die and you get rezzed, you need to cast this pretty quickly because it's going to cancel once you die, obviously, so you'll need to put it back up. So once you get rezzed, throw some dexes on yourself real quick and then run around and then cast your resist buff. Other things you get in this line are buff shears. Now buff shears are pretty good. Druid ones are pretty good too. Each realm's buff shears are a little bit different. Shamans cast faster, clerics are slower casting, but they're higher range, and then druids are sort of in the middle of both. So we'll take the let's take the dex quick shear for example, probably the most important shear, maybe tied with the strength con shear. But we'll look at this, and so what it does is it's a 1600 range spell. So it's higher than your standard spell range, like your standard nuke or root or mez range. So it's 1600 range, and it's a 2.5 second cast time, so it's pretty quick. And what it does is it just takes Dex Quick or whatever shear you're using from your target. So for example, my bard has Dex Quick that I gave him as a druid. I'll cast the shear, and you can see it takes the buff from him. You cancel, or since I buffed him, it says the tornado stance, which is Dex Quick, I canceled. So it just takes away the buff from the target. You can use this on enemies that have supremacy pots up, or people that have like a heroism pot up, but you can also use it on people that just have bot buffs up. The people you cannot use this on are people that have buffed themselves. For example, my bard has his own base dex up, so we'll cast the base dex shear on him, and it's not actually going to cast. You saw it resist. It will still interrupt. Keep that in mind. So you can still interrupt with shears. However, down here, let me make this a little bit bigger so you can read it. Make it a little bit bigger. It's not big enough. Your target's connection to their enhancement is too strong for you to remove. So anyone that self-buffs themselves, I think paladins with their self-timered bases, thanes with their own strength con, champs. I mean, I know we're on Hib, but for example, champs with their strength con and dex quick, you can't shear those. Even though they're timer buffs, they're not like permanent conk buffs, but you still can't shear those. Even this bard, for example, he has a strength con buff. It's a 20-minute duration, just self strength con. I can't shear that. It's going to say, yeah, target's connection is too strong. So you can only shear buffs that were given by other people or from like potions. You can also not shear buff charges. For example, like Ring of Crozier's Dex Ring or whatever, or any sort of like Dex Quick or Strength Con charge that comes from an item. You can't share those. So keep that in mind. A lot of the higher level tanks will run like a Strength Con or a Dex Quick charge, just so they're unshearable. Some people might also run champion level buffs. They're not going to be quite as high in value, but they make them, they're unshearable at that point. So anyone using champ buffs, unshearable as well. So shears, they do have their weaknesses, but you get strength con, dex quick, base dex, base con, base strength, acuity. You get all the shears. You don't get like a haste shear or a dex or a spec AF shear, but you get all the stat shears. So those are pretty good, and they're good reps. They're quick casting and they're 1600 range. That pretty much does it for nurture. Maybe once you go higher level, you get like I think 45. You get a spell. This is actually pretty good, but it's kind of an investment to go for. It's a 10-second duration spell that decreases damage taken on any target you want. It's targetable within 1500 range. It reduces damage taken by 50%. Now this is pretty good, but you do have to invest into 45 nurture, so you're giving up a lot of your healing and your like your nature subspec stuff. So you're probably not going to go for that, but it is there if you want it. Looking at regrowth now, because that's going to be your secondary spec that you're putting quite a bit of points into. So you're putting 33 points into that. Your main heals, we'll look at those. Your greater heal, let's see, where is that? Maybe 32. This is going to heal for roughly 675 or so with a max heal bonus in your template. It's 2.2 cast time, 2000 range, really good heal. It's going to be your big single target heal. It's what you'll be using a lot of. You also get this thing called a major heal. It's your other single target heal. It's a little bit slower casting, and it's going to heal for a little bit less. Let's see. Let's damage the bard. And keep in mind, I only have 20 heal bonus in this template, so I'm missing about 5 heal bonus. We'll damage the bard down to where I can do a greater heal and a major heal, and we can compare the values. All right, so the greater heal heals for, on my druid, since I don't have max heal bonus, 647. The major heal is going to heal for 460. So it's about a 200 value difference, and the cast time's a little bit slower. It's going to be about 0.4 second cast difference, 2.2 versus 2.6. The big difference, the reason you will want to use your major heal sometimes, is the power cost is 66 on the greater versus 24 on the major. So there's a big power cost difference, so keep that in mind. Other heals that you'll like to use are your spread heal, which should be level 30. Yep. Regenerating spirit. So this is gonna be your big group heal. It's gonna heal for the most, and it also heals through disease. So if you have a lot of disease targets, you're gonna want to use this heal. It's a slow cast time, 2000 radius, uses quite a bit of power, but it's a pretty potent group heal if you have to use it. We'll see how much it heals for. Let me do some damage to this bard, get him pretty low, and then we'll see how much the spread hits for. Let's see. Let's go. Get him a little lower. Okay. All right. I gotta wait for a few seconds to invite the bard because combat. Because apparently realm duel equals PvE combat. All right. So let's see. So this heal heals for 560, and then, oops, okay, yeah, so 560, and your greater heal heals for 640, so it's about 100 less than your greater, so that's really not that bad. So keep that in mind. You might want to, you'll probably be using that every now and then, especially if targets are out of line of sight, or just if you need to heal a bunch of people at once. Your other heal, however, is going to be this group heal, which you get, is this it? Yep. I believe that's it, right? Yeah. Let's put it on my bar. Okay. It's going to be a lot less impactful than the spread heal, just because it's a lot lower level, and it's always going to be a lower value anyway, because it's just how group heal function. However, it is a faster cast time, and it does affect pets. So you'll be using this heal when you either need to heal pets, or if you need to get really fast group heals out. And so it heals for about 202. So it's really not that great. So you probably won't be using this a lot. You'll probably be using your spread heal more. And the group heal is affected by disease, but there is a cast difference. If you can see, this is a spread heal. Sorry, this is a group heal. So the group heal casts pretty quickly. The spread heal casts, I mean, they're similar, but there is a difference. There's about a 1 second difference, I believe. 3.5 versus 2.4, so about a 1 second difference. That about does it for all the heals. besides the instant heals, I'll get in the instant heals now then. You get a single target 75% instant heal, 2000 range, instant cast, obviously, costs 0 power, 5-minute reuse, really good. So if you're erupted and you got to heal a target real quick, it's going to heal him for 3/4 of his health, huge heal. Also, if a target's getting spiked down and you just can't keep up with graders, you can put a group instant into it. So there's that. There's also let's find the group heal. What's the group heal called? Group heal is, yes, it's this one, this level 23 spell. Was it Bith's Venison? It's similar to the instant heal, the single target instant heal. It's a 2000 radius or range group heal. It's instant, no power cost or anything, and it heals for 50%. However, instead of being a 5-minute reuse, this is a 10-minute reuse. But still great. If a lot of people are taking damage, blow it. Even if one person's taking damage, you have to save. You can use a group instant on him. Not a big deal. Happens all the time. But yeah, those are all your heals. You get like a really little heal over here at level 15. It's just a 10% heal. However, if you're using the cursed gear, the curse set, the 3-piece set, and what that means is if you wear 3 pieces of the curse set, you have to wear all 3 in the template. You get 5 extra % healing on this. Probably not really worth it. But it's a 1-minute reuse, instant heal that heals for 15%. So we'll put that on here and I'll show you how much it heals for. Let's damage the bard a bit. Damage a little more just in case. So it's going to heal for 228. So it's a nice little bit of help, and it's a minute reuse. So I guess put that on the bar. Anything helps. Other than that, let's look at some cures. So let's look at the baseline cures real quick. So you get a cure poison right here and a cure disease. Now these are both 2000 range and both 2.4 cast time. The way these differ from, say, the pulsing cure poison and pulsing cure disease that you get, and you even get a blue cure poison, but it doesn't matter. We'll look at the green ones. Both the green and the blues, the cast times are pretty long. If you look at this, the cast time's 3.5 seconds on the cure disease. Same with the cure poison. But they do pulse. They pulse. I think they pulse, I don't know, 3 or 4 times. I can't remember how many times they pulse. However, the reason I don't like using these is just because the cast time's a lot slower. It's 1.1 seconds slower. So I like using, unless I know a target's getting disease over and over and over, then I'll use the pulsing cure disease. But if I just need a one-off cure disease, I'll just cast this one. So we'll look at the cast time in this one. Let's see. Let's just put them both on the bar. So we got the cure disease, and then we got the pulsing cure disease. So this is the cure disease, the single pulse, and this is the pulsing one. You can tell the difference there. So I like using the non-pulsing one. So this is the pulse. Just spamming it. Sorry, my mistake. This is the non-pulse, the just low-level cure disease. And this is the pulsing one. So you see that there's quite a bit of a speed difference. You can still use the pulse one. It's up to you. I just prefer the non-pulse. You get a cure near sight. However, you're probably not going to use this spell. It's 6-second cast time, super long. We'll throw it on the bar and test it. Like, just takes days. You'll be using the Perfector one, which is a lot quicker. It's 3-second cast time, half the cast time. Other than that, we have a res. We have a nice 50% health, 25% power res. You'll be using that. It's not instant. It's castable. Your standard res, but just high value. And I think that about covers it for the regrowth line that we'll be getting. If you want to go a lot higher regrowth, you can. You get the better cures. There's still a super long cast time, but it cures poison, disease, and near sight at the highest level. But I can't see anyone really going the spec. I just don't think it's worth it. You get more of these little 1-minute reuse instants that are really good. Like I said, just you're really having to devote into healing to do this. Your heals will go up substantially, but I don't think that's really worth it. So we're not really going to delve into that too much. It's just better versions of everything we looked at so far. But now let's look at our nature line. And like I said, I'm not really going to go into like the higher level nature specs, just because I don't really, like I said, I'll make a nature video if people want it, but I don't think it's popular enough to really go into right now. It'll just make this video a lot longer. But we'll look at the baseline stuff first. So now Druids, if you've played the game in the past, you knew Druids had to spec for their pet. However, now they don't. They get their pet for free. So we'll summon this little bad boy up. He's going to be a blue pet. He's a green pet, my bad. And you get him for free. He's level 40. And he's an all-around good little guy. You can get him to attack. You can get him to do whatever. He's a good interrupting tool. And he's a decent level now. The main thing, though, that you get out of the nature baseline is this root. It's a standard. Let's see where I bound it. It's a standard. It's a standard. Sorry, I repeat myself 12 times. Standard root lasts a minute and 10 seconds. It's a great deal. Can't complain. Just used to be like the only root that Druids really, or that Hibs really got, but now a lot of casters have a root, Spartans have a root, but still super important in the way you play Druid. You're rooting a lot. Other than that, you do have this single target DD and this single target dot. And I like these. I'll tell you, the main reason I think they're very useful is because it gives you an option to pet clear. If a third has petted up your warden or your caster or something and you're free and you don't need to erupt or anything or CC, you can turn around and clear that third pet. This nuke, it does 147, 219. It has a lot of variance, but it does decent damage. You'll 2 or 3 shot an earth pet probably with this. Or what you can do is you can throw a dot on them, and I think 1 dot might clear an earth pet, if I'm not mistaken. Or like a dot and a nuke should definitely clear an earth pet. So throw dots on pets, or just nuke them a couple times if you want it cleared faster. Good way to clear pets. If you say something, you see something in the middle of a fight that's at like 5%, and none of your DPS is open or able to hit it, and you want to finish it off, go for it. I mean, but don't spend all your time nuking on a Druid. That's not what you want to do. But you do have the option to clear pets and to maybe finish something off if you want, or to try to steal a death blow. There you go. That's pretty much it. All the important stuff out of like this damage ad. It's just a self damage ad. Who cares? Out of the nature line. Now let's look at the spec line stuff. You get an AoE root, and this is going to be a 30-second root. It's not going to be. You want to be careful when you use this because you don't want to give away root immunity for free on a low duration root. It's literally less than half the duration of your single target root. However, it is a good way to AoE interrupt. And if you really need like an AoE, like if you need to root out a few people really quick and you don't care about duration, this is a decent spell. It's probably going to resist a lot since it's only level 14, but it's a good way to AoE erupt. This little spell right here is pretty decent. It's a 5-minute reuse, 1500 range, 2.5 second cast time. It's not instant or anything, but it's a good way to snare a target. And from what I remember, it doesn't give root immunity. We'll see. All right, so the bard's snared, so he's running a lot slower. Let's nuke it, see if it gives snare immunity. Okay, so this ability does give root immunity, so you want to be careful with this, but you know it is what it is. It does what it does. It's just a 50% slow snare. The fact that it gives root immunity makes it pretty weak in my opinion, because you probably want to root instead, but keep this in mind if you want to. It is breakable on damage and everything. Other things you get, that's pretty much it. You know, this spell at higher levels is probably decent. What it does is you can target an ally and it'll give them a defensive proc that roots people, but you don't want to use it since the root duration's so low. Actually, this is actually halfway decent because the root doesn't give immunity, but it's only a 5-second root, so I don't know if it's really worth casting a lot. Like if a det stows some tanks on someone and you cast this on your friend and it roots them for 5 seconds, it's the det stoic tank's gonna walk right through it. But if something like a non-det tank, if you happen to be finding one, gets hit by this, it'll actually root them for 4 or 5 seconds. So this might not be the worst thing, but I don't know, it's not super useful at this low level. This is just a little, it's not even worth talking about. And this is just something you can keep up. It's just a 1% health and armor factor buff. I mean, why not? I guess. I believe it's a pulse, so it will be up all the time. So may as well put that up when you're putting up like your resist and stuff. The big thing you get in nature baseline is this free wind ability. Now what this is a 5-minute reuse, 1500 range D-root. It's very similar to DMez, except for it has a recast. Yeah, it's very, very good though. This is the only way you can like cure someone of a root other than like a bolster from a hero or a purge or something like that. So I'll show you it in action. So I'm just going to run the bard, going to root the bard. Okay, resist, root the bard. Okay, keep resisting. All right, bard's Druid, and he's running. Normally in the past, before the spell was introduced, there's really nothing you do to help him, especially as a Druid. But now I can cast this and de-root him, and now he's on his way. So great ability, but you gotta be careful. It is a 5-minute reuse. It's now on cooldown for forever, so keep that in mind. Use it on targets that need it. Don't use it like on a Det Stoic BM or hero. No reason to do that because the root's gonna last on them 10 seconds anyway. Use it on like if you're Warden or your Bard or one of your casters gets rooted out and they need to get back in the fight. Use it on them. You can't use it on yourself. So that's unfortunate for you, but you can use it on your buddies. That about does it for the nature line. If you spec it, I mean, there's some cool stuff you can get, but like you get a higher level pet. Like a high, like was this 4D nurture or nature? Sorry, you get a level 50 pet. I think you get higher level pets as you go. You might get a blue one at some point, maybe not. Yeah, you only get that level 50 pet, but still, if you want to get nature, you're probably soloing. I would imagine. So, yeah, I'd have to make a specialized video for that, I think. But right now, I'm just gonna keep it at that for abilities and stuff. So we went through everything you get with the spec. You went through the kind of the downfalls of like the lack of buffs, and obviously you don't get crazy nature stuff, but it's pretty good all around spec. You still get all your shears. You get all the really important buffs like the Dex Quick and the Strength Con. You don't get the great acuity, but it's okay. You get decent heals, like you're healing for about 650 to 375 once you get proper heal bonus on. And you got your 2 instas. They're good values. Your spread heal's good. So let's go ahead and maybe look at what the rank 5 does. Now the rank 5 is really, really strong in my opinion. It's one of those rank 5s. It's a 5-minute reuse, which is super cool. But what this does is it gives you, essentially makes you invulnerable for 5 seconds. But it's like, instead of being like a phase shift where it just makes you invulnerable, it just makes everything resist or miss on you. What this does is it actually converts all damage you take into healing. So if I pop rank 5 and I'm at 50% health and I get hit for 500, instead of doing damage to me, it's going to heal me for 500. So I'm going to go from 50% to like, I don't know, 75, 60%, whatever that is. Super strong. You can't cast while you're in this. So I'll hit it here. It doesn't actually stun you. It used to stun you, but it just gives you the stun effect now, or the stun look. But you can still run around while you're rank 5. You just can't cast or melee or anything like that. But it does make you invincible. It heals all the damage you would have taken, heals you, and you can run around. 5-minute reuse, 5-second duration. Really strong. Use that when you get in trouble. Looking at RAs, as far as Dex breakpoints go, I think you probably get away with going for the 362 breakpoint. You don't really have enough 3.0 spells to warrant going for the 374 breakpoint. So I would go for the 362 breakpoint probably. I'm not super up to date on the breakpoint chart, so there might be a good breakpoint that you can go for, but I think from the old breakpoint chart, 362 is the way to go. Other RAs you probably want to get, other than however much AUG Dex you need to hit that breakpoint, are things like, and keep in mind my druid's spec for PvE. Apparently I have toughness or something. I was doing Jack Frost, but DI is a pretty good RA. Go DI 1, DI 2. Even if you want higher DI, go for it. What I like doing is using DI. If I can have it up at the start of a fight, that's great. But I really like using it mid-fight. It's essentially another instant. Like if I'm petted to hell, and I know I'm not going to be able to heal Yeah, no damage is coming. I'll DI. I don't want to just put it up willy-nilly because there's a lot of unimportant damage that gets thrown out in the fight, like from pets or just people interrupting. And it might eat up some DI there if they go under that 75% threshold. But if you pop DI when you know you're going to need like big damage shield, like using it as an instant per se, or using it when people are low and you just can't heal, that's a good way to use it in my opinion. I like doing that. So get some DI. It's just a healing battery. I think DI1 heals for, it gives you 1,000 healing battery. DI2 is 1,500. DI3 is 2,000. Goes up by 500 every increment. But I think DI2 is a sweet spot. Or DI1 even. It's whatever. I like PR. I don't just like PR. You have to have PR pretty much. It's so good. It's a 5-minute reuse, instant res. Doesn't give res sick when they res. PR1 is like it's 10% to all. I think PR2 is 25% to all. I think PR3 is it reses them with 50% power and health. PR2 is really good if you can afford it, because when you res a person, then they actually have some power to do something, and they're not moving at like super slow speed because they have 25% health. So look at maybe getting PR2 if you have the rank, PR1 if you're super low rank. RAs like Barrier of Fortitude are good. They give you a lot of ABS. Which helps against tanks. So if you find that you're having a lot of trouble with tanks, get some BOF or Barrier of Fortitude. I don't normally get it because my Druid's super low, and I think it's sort of a luxury RA. So there's other things I'd rather have, but get it if you think you need it against tanks. If you're fighting a lot of tanks, go for it. Purge. You're going to want probably Purge 2 at least. And you can get higher levels of Purge if you want the lower cooldowns. It's all dependent on how much tolerance you have for Purge cooldown. But you probably want at least Purge 2. And the reason you don't want Purge 1 is because there's a 5-second delay on it between when you hit Purge and when it actually like takes you out of the stun or mez or root or whatever. If you get mezzed and you realize someone's about to die if you don't Purge and heal them, if you don't have Purge 2 or an instant Purge, that person's dead, because you'll hit Purge and you have to wait 5 seconds to heal them. They'll likely die within that 5-second timer, unless the damage stops or someone else heals them. So that's why I like Purge 2 at least. Mock. I like Mock on Druids. 1, because if you get Rupted and you gotta get heals out, that's a great way to heal. 2, because you can be really aggressive with it, and Druids generally play pretty aggressive, whereas the Heal Warden generally plays further back and more passive. The Druid will get up in there and will root a lot. It'll throw out shears, it'll throw out interrupts, so make sure it's pets just dominating someone. So you wanna get some Mock, in my opinion. The level of Mock you get depending on you, really. Mock it makes you uninterruptible for 30 seconds. And depending on what level of Mock you have determines how effective your spells are. It ranges from 25% effectiveness at rank 1 to 75% effectiveness at rank 5. I like getting Mach 3 or 4 on Druid probably. Because I still think, because if you get Mach 3, it's going to have your heals essentially. So you'll be healing with your Greater for probably about 340, which is not great, but it's okay. If you use Mach 4, you'll have 60% heals. So you'll heal for probably like 380 or something like that. I don't know the exact math, but you'll heal for a little bit more. And your root will last a bit longer with Mach 4 or Mach 3 versus like Mach 2 or Mach 1. I don't think you should get either of those on the healing class, Mach 2 or Mach 1, because you're just not going to be able to put out enough healing for it to be worth it. So get Mach 3 or 4. If you're really crazy and super high rank, you can get Mach 5, but that's a lot of points, so I don't know if I would. I think that's going to about do it for all the actives you're going to want to get. There are some passives you want to get. Obviously, I mentioned the dex stuff earlier. You're going to want to get however much dex it takes to get to your probably 362 breakpoint, or whatever breakpoint you choose you want to go for. Between your template and buffs and that, go for that breakpoint. You can even get RAs like Mastery Focus 1. Your root is level 47, so it's not even level 50. So Focus 1 will get that to level 50. Your buff shears, if you look at those, they're all in the level 30 range. Goes from like 32 to like 37 or 39. So Mastery Focus is definitely going to help your shears land. They might resist otherwise. So maybe look at getting some focus. I probably won't invest too many points into it. Other than that, you can get healing RAs like Wild Healing and Mastery Healing. Wild Healing gives you a chance to crit. You at least want Wild Healing 1 because heals do not have a base chance to crit. So that'll at least give you some sort of chance if you get Wild Healing 1. If you're high rank, you can go, you can put some points into Wild Healing and Mastery Healing because you're only healing for 675 cap, and that's with your greater. So if you want that to go up without changing your spec, healing RAs are the way to do it. Other than that, you can look at getting something like Avoidance of Magic if you're fighting a lot of caster groups and you think that you're the one getting nuked a lot. If you're dying to a lot of magic damage, maybe look at some Avoidance of Magic. You're not a frontline character on Druid, but you are very aggressive, and you will get targeted every now and then. So that's always an option if you want more survivability versus caster groups, and if your rank supports it. Other than that, I think that's about it for RAs. There's so many RAs you can get like that. That's even at like rank 12, you're not going to be able to get everything you want probably to the level you want at least. So that'll keep you busy RA wise. Looking at some template options. Probably going to want a lot of Arcane Siphon, and what that does is it gives you a chance not to use mana on a spell cast. You can get that from things like your DF weapon or the RA Light weapon. I don't have one on me. This is a super old template, but you can get 10 Siphon on a weapon from your RA Light or the DF. You can get probably your cloak. I think probably has some Arcane Siphon on it. It's 5%. This Otherworldly Piercing gem has 10%. So it's a pretty good gem to use if you want some Arcane Siphon. There's other ways to get it, but those are some really popular ways. That gives you 25% right there. Other items you want, like I said, this Loyal Cloak of the Loyal Druid. It has really good stats regardless, but it also has this really cool PBOE root that's nice for self-peeling. It's a 30-second duration PBOE root charge. So that's pretty nice. I'm sure it'll work on pets. So if you need to root like a Sork pet off you or something, use that. Or if like some, I don't know, like Paladin or Reaver or something stuck to you, throw that on them. Be careful using this on Debt Stoicism tanks because it's not going to last very long, and it will likely give them root immunity. I hadn't tested it. I can't test it. I'd have to put it on and wait 15 minutes. But so keep that in mind. The other use on this is a pulsing disease cure. It's going to pulse every 15 seconds, and it's going to disease cure your whole group. So that's actually pretty helpful because if someone gets diseased and you need to cure them, that's going to be one cast that you have to waste on curing a disease. And sometimes like you don't have that cast, like you have to be healing them or else they'll die because they're getting so much constant damage that you can't really stop to cure disease them. But at the same time, it's cutting your heals in half. So this could be super useful because it's going to cure them every 15 seconds. So keep that in mind. Maybe use that. There's a cursed, the set of cursed gloves, which is the curse campaign. At level 10, you get gloves as a reward. There's a certain set of gloves that give you a, I think it's a 5 or 7 minute buff that increases your healing by 25%. I think it's that long, but it's a really good buff for healers and for druids. It's just going to make you heal for a lot more, 25% more. So maybe look at those. There's another set of gloves that you probably won't get on druid because it might be hard to fit in a template, and you might want that heal bonus charge even more. But it's a 25% heal, self heal. It's like a mini IP. So that's good for survivability. Maybe you want to fit that in your template. So maybe look at that. Those are called cursed blood gloves, or look at the heal bonus cursed gloves. The cursed druid set's not really worth it. It just increases this little instant heal. Not worth it in my opinion. You can look at things like conversion if you want. Although like CTR, Croc to Your Ring gives it. Otherworldly belts give it. Maybe if you want some conversion, just help you survive a little more. It's going to take damage that you would have taken and convert it into mana and endurance. You can also go for melee resist charges and magic resist charges. Things such as Azure Ring, Ring of the Azure, I should say. It gives you the secondary 10% magic buff, or things like the Otherworldly belts, which are really good because they give you Dex overcap, conversion, and they give you a 10% melee resist charge. So those are super useful. You're gonna probably want Infernal Sleeves in your template. These give you 10 power regen, mythical power regen, and then combine that with your Mytherian. Rather you use one of the new Mytherians, like the Freezing Mytherians, which will probably give you 8 power regen, or like something like a Greater Power Myth, which gives you 15. Use those, or even like the Doppel Dex Myth, which gives you 8 Dex over cap and 10 power regen. Those are good. You're gonna want to use some sort of power myth and Infernals. And I think maybe some of the cursed items give you some power regen for druids, maybe the chest piece, but it's been a while. You also want to fit in some power charges. Things like your weapon might have them if you don't use the ancient weapon. The ancient weapon also has the melee and magical charge, the resist charges, I think. So maybe look at those. But you can use like a Pictish or a Pixlay or Runic Mace, throw it on your back even if you're not using it, and you can use a power charge off that. Maybe your shield will give it to you, who knows. And if you don't want to throw a power charge weapon on your back, you can throw something like Staff of the Gods on your back. And that gives you a 1500 range, 700 radius, so it's a huge radius, AoE snare, 25% snare. That's unbreakable. It doesn't give immunities or anything too, so that's super useful. I always like running Staff of the Gods if I can on my back just for that charge. So think about that. Other than that, you can go for things like otherworldly rings that give you that 5% health armor factor buff. Things like the Chapter 6 bracer, Cursed Chapter 6 bracer, I should say, which gives your whole group that 5% health and armor factor buff. And that actually stacks with the Otherworld ring too, so you get a total of 10% health and armor factor. So that's really good. Maybe try to fit some of those in. Other than that, I can't think of anything off the top of my head. Templates are, so many different options, so just maybe fit some of those in if you can. As far as strategy goes, druids, like I said earlier, they're not the passive ones generally in a group. The warden's gonna be the passive healer. The druid's gonna be the more aggressive one that's using his pet to interrupt a lot, that's using his shears to erupt, using his roots to CC out stuff. Like I said, you can help clear pets with this little damage ability or this dot. Pretty versatile. You're kind of going to be the frontline healer on this. Some interesting things to note about the pet. You're going to want to keep this guy up all the time if you can. It's such a valuable interrupt tool. You can just, if you're fighting an owl group or something, throw it on the Thurg. It's going to keep the Thurg erupted for a while. Someone's going to have to mess it or root it. Throw it on one like the cleric or something. It's going to bother him. Someone's going to have to do something to clear that pet or to CC that pet. And if your pet gets mez, for example, I'm going to use my bard to mez the pet. So, oh crap, my pet's mez. I don't have a pet demez with this spec. What I can do is I can release my pet and resummon it. And then boom, I have a pet that's not mez. And I can send it back on the bard. Something to note. Let's see. Let's do it again. All right, pet's mezzed. Oh crap. What you can do is you can start casting your new pet. And if you let the cast go through without releasing your pet, nothing's going to happen. It's just going to say you already have a charmed creature. Release it first. However, if you wait until the end, you can release it right at the end. It's going to create another pet. So just release the pet before you actually summon the next one. And the reason you don't just want to release the mez pet or the rooted pet immediately is you might get interrupted in a spell cast and you might not have another chance to resummon your pet. And so you at least want to keep the CC pet around, and because something might break the CC or it might come out of it and still be useful. Just release it once you know you can actually get another one up, because you don't want to be stuck with no pet if you released it and then got erupted and aren't able to cast for a while. Things I would do, I would definitely put my pet commands, like my pet attack, my pet passive, and my pet release on my bar somewhere. I don't have them on my bar. I don't have most of them on my bar. I don't have the release on my bar, at least, because I don't play this guy and I haven't taken the time to set it up. I just threw around some PvE bars. But in order to get these buttons like this that you can throw on your quick bar, just hold down shift and then click attack, throw it on there, hold down shift, and then with your mouse click passive, throw it on there, hold down shift, click release, and put it on there. So what you'll do is you'll start casting a new pet, and then I'll press 3, release a pet, and then boom, it's alive. I hit 1, it sends it on the bard, and then I can hit 2 to passive it if I need to root the Bard then, or if someone else needs to CC it, and then boom, good to go. So use those, use your pet's super important. And yeah, other than that, probably going to play relatively aggressive, using your shears and your pet and your roots and stuff to erupt and lock down a fight, and then you'll probably be healing the front line a lot, so keep that in mind. If you have any other questions or anything, or tips or ideas that I might have missed, because I haven't played Druid in forever, and I certainly haven't played Druid since the new changes, so there might be some fancy things I missed. So if you have any ideas, let me know. Put them in the comments, or any tips or suggestions on things I need to do, any questions, like I said. Other than that, thanks for watching. This has been the Druid class for Hibernia. We'll see you next time, guys. Thanks.